I've been using a Springfield Armory 1911 DS Prodigy 5-inch model for handgun competition with over 5,000 rounds fired through it. In this video, I will review the Prodigy as a handgun for USPSA and Steel Challenge competition and compare it to my custom 2011 handguns used for the same purpose. I have tracked every round fired and logged every malfunction. I even have video of the match malfunctions. The first thing you should know about the Prodigy is it is a true 2011, mostly faithful to the original Chip McCormick design from the early 1990s. It uses the CMC patent modular frame dimensions to accept STI-style grips. The Prodigy grip itself might be a little different in the trigger bow and magazine well areas, but Prodigy-specific aftermarket solutions already exist. It uses the 1911 ejector pin diameter instead of the larger 2011 pin diameter. Other than that, it's a faithful 2011, and all 1911 and 2011 parts will fit in the frame and slide. The frame is a long, wide dust cover style with a slant cut and unfortunate rail cuts. The slide is a full profile style with a small stirrup cut to blend to the dust cover slant cut. Basically, the 5-inch Prodigy is equivalent to the old STI Edge or STI Tactical and should fit those holsters. There is no current staccato equivalent combination of slide and frame. My Prodigy fits my Kydex Blade Tech holster for the STI Edge, but I use it from my old Ghost race holster for generic 2011s. The Prodigy includes 2 Duramag magazines. I have replaced the springs, followers, and base pads, and used them extensively with both my Prodigy and my Limcat open gun. I also use MBX, Atlas, and Staccato magazine tubes with Grams, springs, and followers, and Grams or Dawson base pads. I had one major magazine malfunction with the Prodigy 140mm Duramag when its Grams guts stuck. But I've had that same problem with MBX and STI magazines when shooting other guns in major matches. The Springfield barrel does seem to be chambered a little short. I load everything to 1.135 inches, and a couple different bullet types seem to barely touch the rifling at that length. Everything else plunks in and falls out without resistance. I have shot plenty of coated, plated, and jacketed bullets through the Prodigy. It prefers jacketed bullets for accuracy, no surprise, and I prefer 147 grains for overall feel. The Prodigy includes a very lightweight firing pin, which I do not trust to ignite primers, especially with a lighter hammer and lower power mainspring. I replaced it with a standard 1911 firing pin and spring for reliable ignition of primers. Even with a light 15-pound mainspring, it is igniting various standard and Magnum pistol primers, foreign and domestic. CCI, Federal, Fiocchi, Miram, and Servicios all go bang. I have dropped in 2 different hammer and sear combinations from a well-used custom 2011 USPSA limited division gun. I also replaced the strut, pins, and mainspring parts. Each of these combos was custom fitted by a gunsmith for the limited gun. The first combo resulted in a trigger that was no better than the stock Prodigy trigger, possibly even worse. The second combo is magic. This trigger feels the same as the custom limited gun it came from, and similar to my Limcat custom open gun. The stock Prodigy thumb safeties are perfectly adequate for competition if you are using the stock hammer and sear, or they somehow fit your aftermarket hammer and sear. But I chose to use ambidextrous shielded thumb safeties so my thumb doesn't ride against the slide and slow it down. Their large thumb ledges took a lot of filing and sanding to get ergonomically correct. The shields almost force using the forward cocking serrations to load and unload the pistol, so I'm glad the Prodigy has the forward cocking serrations. The stock Prodigy grip is okay, but not 100% compatible with 2011 triggers and magazine wells. I swapped the stock Prodigy grip with a SV stainless grip, mainspring housing, trigger, and magwell to make a super heavyweight pistol. It was with this grip and its SV sear spring that I encountered most of my malfunctions with the Prodigy. Hammer following. When you get a trigger below 2 pounds, you really have to get your sear spring just right. With the stainless grip, the gun was very soft feeling, but I found it too heavy, at over 55 ounces. The vast majority of my USPSA shooting has been in the limited division with custom 2011s, similar to the Prodigy. Long dust cover, bull barrel, and 5-inch slide. So the Prodigy weight and balance feel good to me. The Prodigy transitions side to side, just like I want to, and it recoils up and down and returns straight back, just like I want to, without a whole lot of muzzle flip and without any excessive snappiness to it. I swapped to a STI polymer grip with a plastic mainspring housing and stainless magwell. This combination uses a Colt sear spring and 15-pound mainspring for a very light and reliable trigger. I like it, but I want just a little more weight in the grip area. The stock Prodigy guide rod is 2 threaded parts screwed together. I expect it to unthread itself into 2 pieces at some time during shooting and prematurely end a stage. I use a 1-piece tungsten guide rod with a buffer and a 9-pound spring. I swapped the extractor with a spare, previously shaped and fit to a .40 caliber limited gun. The stock extractor works fine for a couple practice sessions, but I trust the machined extractor to last tens of thousands of rounds. I also swapped the stock firing pin stop plate with a new machined part, which required fitting. At this point, my Prodigy is a Springfield Armory fitted slide barrel and frame with my mostly fitted and drop-in aftermarket parts. The only original parts are the frame, safety plunger and spring, ejector and pin, slide barrel, link, and pin. Despite all the changes, it's still a good value as a limited optics race gun. The Prodigy is finished with what I assume is Cerakote. It's like a hard, thick paint. When it was new, the coating on the frame and slide rails made cycling by hand feel less than ideal. I helped remove the coating from the rail surfaces by applying a fine abrasive and repeatedly hand cycling. I assumed the coating would eventually come off on its own by just shooting the oiled gun. My Prodigy has run lubricated with grease, gun oil, or automotive engine oil. Engine oil is too light and splatters off. Slide glide gun grease is otherwise fine, but I don't trust a tight 9mm 2011 to cycle properly in a freezing cold winter match. I managed to induce a malfunction in its first practice session by running the Prodigy with a stronger recoil spring and no lubrication. I've shot groups with the Prodigy out to 47 yards, where it will hold the A-zone of an IPSC target. The Prodigy's bull barrel locks up tightly to the slide at the muzzle and at the hood. Shooting tighter groups at closer ranges is child's play. Prodigy bull barrel is ramped Wilson Nowlin style. It has a stupid and useless loaded chamber indicator notch at 12 o'clock on the barrel hood. This notch's main function is to transfer oil and carbon onto the optic lens. In a match, I just clean it after the first stage, and it's usually good for the rest of the match. The last match, I didn't even notice a problem, I guess because I used grease on the barrel instead of oil. My other complaint with the Prodigy is also optic related. It includes an optic plate with a footprint used by few or no competitive sites. So you have to buy an adapter plate for $100, but they don't make a plate for the Seymour RTS pattern. If you want to shoot limited optics with a competitive red dot sight, you have to put a Delta Point, SRO, or Holosun on the Prodigy. If you prefer the RTS-2 Romeo Max or FTP Alpha, tough luck. What's more frustrating about the Prodigy optic plate situation is that at least one of my Holosun 507 comp screws comes slightly loose from the plate almost every practice session. The plate itself is holding on. When I purchased the $100 Springfield A14B plate to use my Holosun, the plate didn't fit the slide cutout. Springfield Armory customer support was initially unhelpful, but a follow-up call later with a different representative eventually got me a replacement plate, which I've been using ever since. While waiting for a replacement optic plate, I used the iron sights for some practice and a couple matches. Black is beautiful, and while I prefer black sights front and rear, the Prodigy has a green fiber optic insert in its front sight and a serrated black rear sight. Unfortunately, it has a U-shaped notch in the rear instead of square edges. Presumably, they were going for round fiber optic circle shape in the round U-shape. For me, classified Grandmaster in the limited division of USPSA, which suggests I can shoot iron sights fast and accurately, the U-notch is kind of weak. A square notch would let me use the square front post edge for long distance shots and tight shots on partial targets. But I don't expect many people will be shooting iron sight gun games with the 9mm Prodigy. Maybe some Steel Challenge and some 3-gun? The optic plates include a backup rear sight. Mine came loose, so I removed it and never looked back. But that's all I can complain about. The gun loads, fires, and ejects all kinds of different ammo through all kinds of different magazines. It puts the bullets into acceptably tight groups for practical shooting. It lets me do so at masterclass speed. It has held up for over 5,000 rounds. What else do you want a race gun to do?